Custom browser docs. Let me open this up. Chat. All right, y'all. Woo, we getting started a little bit late tonight. That's all right, but we here now. We here. How's everybody doing? Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. All right. Miss D, what's going on? Big shout out to you. Good to see you in here tonight. I'll let y'all funnel on in here before I get started. John Green, what's going on, brother? You was missing the lives, but you're back. Good to see you in here. It's all good. Jay, what's going on? All right, so we got some 1s in the chat here. There we go. There we go. I'm doing well, brother. How's it going? All right. So we're gonna have a pretty in-depth conversation tonight. I'm gonna fly off. I'm gonna go a little bit. Well, I usually free flow, but I got a lot of things that I wanted to cover today, right? Because last week and this week, I've been getting a variety of different questions of people having some serious metabolic issues, gut health issues, hormonal balance issues, and all that type of stuff, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that tonight. Before I do that, folks, definitely hit the like button as you join into the stream. Those who are familiar with my streams know I put a lot of very important information in here that you can act on day one. Here we go. I got my big old mug of chlorophyll water. So I'm gonna touch on gut health. I'm gonna touch on hormonal imbalance. I'm gonna touch on metabolic disorders, gas, bloating, gut pain, leaky gut, right? Fatty liver, right, or liver disease in general, kidney disease, also known as CKD. These are things that I'm definitely going to cover tonight, right? And this is also very important stuff too, even when it comes to basic things like weight loss, right? I've been asked a lot about hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's disease, right? So there's some things I want to say about that to clear that up, right? So this is going to be an important one. And the recording of this will be up live when I'm done here tonight. All right. First of all, how are y'all feeling tonight? Put a W in the chat if you're having a good week so far. If your week is starting off right this Monday. Right. Today is MLK Day. Right. So we all got the day off. Well, not we all, because I work today. Right. I work pretty much. There's not really many holidays that I actually engage in. So I pretty much work every day except Sunday. Well, and sometimes I work on Sunday. Very obsessive in that kind of way. We see some W's in the chat here. I like it. We're getting some wins going. The Monday starting off right. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So this stream is going to answer a lot of questions tonight, and whatever questions I missed, definitely put them in the chat, and I'll get to those as well, right? Answering some questions tonight. All right. My energy has been on point all day today. My brain is working real well today. I've been eating fully raw now for the last, I want to say 2.5 weeks, somewhere around there. Fully raw. It's so far, I think it's the best thing I've done. I mean, I don't really have much reason to eat cooked food other than just sometimes I like a little something more warm and savory, right? But truth be told, I don't really. If I had to tell you what way of eating I feel the best on, I would probably say raw vegan. If I had to say what is the most conducive to my lifestyle, I would probably say raw vegan, right? Actually, no, not probably. I would say it's raw vegan without a doubt. And I also, speaking of raw vegan, I want to talk about the mistakes that people often make on a raw vegan diet, right? Because there are some things that people do where they think they can follow the same approach all year round. And you really can't. You have to eat according to your goals. So when you decide, okay, I'm going to go down a given path, you have to assess, well, what are my top 3 goals? And are those 3 goals compatible with each other? And then once you find this set of 2 to 3 goals that are compatible with each other, that's when you can then create a plan around that. That's what I do in particular, because some goals, they compete with each other, right? And then some goals, they coincide with each other. So a great example of that is weight loss goes well with reversing gut health issues or hormonal balance issues, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes weight loss may have to take a back seat, right? Because what if your weight loss struggles are a result of you chronically under eating and you have to increase the amount of food that you eat as a result, right? Now, you would get some initial gains in weight loss, right? From eating more, but it's not like a rapid weight loss plan kind of deal, right? Weight loss is not necessarily even really a worthy goal. It's more of a side effect of doing things the right way. If you have a tremendous amount of weight to lose, it is not because you ate one too many calories too consistently, but it's more along the lines of you have a metabolic disorder or some type of hormonal imbalance or some type of gut health issue, right? And it's not that you've been overeating, it's that you've been engaging in too much food poisoning, repetitive food poisoning. And so what happens is your body responds to inflammation, oxidative stress, and food poisoning by body fat retention. And this is where your visceral fat will really go up and whatnot, because more fat will get caked on top of your organs as like a protective measure. Visceral fat is a thing that you actually need a little bit of. You should have some of it. It is a protective mechanism that the body creates. The problem is when the visceral fat begins to be too high, right? So for me personally, my visceral fat is like 4. Right, so that's where my visceral fat is at. If you go beyond like 12, that's way too high. So being in between, like 2 and 6 or something like that, I would say that's pretty much ideal, right? So your body will retain fat as a protective mechanism, but your body can only store but so much fat until it becomes problematic in and of itself, right? It's kind of like you use a shield to protect yourself from oncoming strikes. But the problem is if your shield is too big, now you can't see in front of you, it's klutzy, it's in the way, and now you can't even fight back because you got this big ass shield blocking your vision and whatnot. You can't even attack effectively, right? So, everything has to be proportionate, basically. Body fat is not negative inherent, right? It's a matter of degree. Right? And that can go for bone tissue, that can go for muscle tissue, that can go for hair growth. I mean, pretty much everything. Carbs are not good or bad, right? It depends on the degree. Fat is not good or bad, right? I'm talking about dietary fat. So which leads me into my first thing, because this is probably the biggest raw vegan diet mistake that people make, which is high carb. And people pursue a high carb raw vegan diet by reducing the amount of fat they eat as much as possible. When I tell people, hey, 60, 65%, maybe even 55% carbs or so, I'm not telling people 80% carbs. And the reason why I do that is because you don't want to cut your fats too much. This is why I don't really necessarily endorse, hey, you should eat 80% carbs, 10% protein, 10% fat, and just do that perpetually for years and years and years. I think that if you're going to deploy a strategy like that, it should be for about 4 to 12 weeks. Okay, depending on the goal. But I think after like 12 weeks or so, maybe even 16 weeks, there will come a point in time where you pivot off of that, right? Because your fats are essential, your carbs are essential, your protein is essential. It's all essential. People sometimes they'll say, carbohydrates are not essential, and it's like, well, technically no, but what is in the carbs is essential, right? The glucose is essential. That's the thing that people don't understand. Um, and you'll hear this from a lot of carnivore people. Oh, fat is essential, but not carbs. It's like, well, carbs are essential, right? Because when you cut all your carbohydrates, by default, what you end up doing is you significantly reduce the amount of glucose that your body receives and that your brain needs. Your brain uses a tremendous amount of glucose. And when you cut your carbs long enough and hard enough, you deprive your brain of the necessary glucose, which can be problematic later on. I've had a lot of people come to me who they tried a carnivore diet. They had constipation. They had massive diarrhea, gut health issues, heart palpitations, skyrocketing cholesterol. They were insulin resistant, etc. Completely lost their libido, erectile dysfunction, vaginal dryness, etc. because they did it, and they felt really good in the beginning, and then the longer they did it, the worse it got. This happens for them, but this also happens for raw vegans who cut all of their fats and it's just carbs. They cut their protein too low, they cut their fats too low, and it's just straight carbs, even beyond 80%. And that's a mistake, right? You can do it for a time, but you don't want to do it indefinitely. It depends on the goal, right? Your eating habits should change on a seasonal basis for the most part, where you can have, let's say, 2 to 3 sets of eating habits, or even 4 sets of eating habits. They're different from each other, and maybe very different from each other, but they do share similarities, right, as far as the food choice. It depends on what your goal is, right? And we got to deal with the nuance of that. The reason why I'm leading with this up front is because when we apply some approach as a magic bullet, that's when we become very susceptible to having other issues, like hormonal imbalances, for example. If you cut your fats for too long, you don't get the necessary linoleic acid, you don't get the necessary omega-3 essential fatty acids, omega-6 essential fatty acids. You don't get these vital nutrients. As a result, you can develop a zinc deficiency, right, where you can lack the necessary zinc that you need, especially if you're a raw vegan, right? It's things like that you become susceptible to. You can lack selenium, where you're not getting enough selenium, right? Now, this doesn't happen immediately. It takes roughly, I would say, probably 6-8 months, maybe. It may even take you a year. But it can happen in even 3 months or 6 months if you're chronically under eating because you're pursuing a very aggressive weight loss strategy, which a lot of people pursue a raw vegan diet to do. So, first addressing a raw vegan diet. Now, with a raw vegan diet, your fats can be a lot higher, generally speaking. I mean, your fats can be like around 30% of your macros. Now, your fats on a raw vegan diet, the reason why they can be higher in that way is because of the food choice. You have, generally speaking, 3 different fats. You have monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and saturated fat. Saturated fat is usually the most problematic source of fat, right? This is the thing that tends to cause people their health issues. Not because saturated fat is inherently wrong, but to the degree. People usually have saturated fat to an excessive degree. Saturated fat mostly comes in large portions from animal products, right? Now, if you're getting most of your fats from saturated fats, well, the question is, what are those food choices, and then how are you prepping those foods? So, for example, let's say you eat fish. Fish, not necessarily a terrible food choice. Not the most beneficial, but not terrible. I would say fish is probably better than like chicken or something, right? Because the fish contains polyunsaturated fat along with the saturated fat. So this is the biggest difference there. The fish, particularly wild-caught fish, farm fish, that's not really that great. That's right up there with the chicken. But wild-caught fish would be higher in, like, for example, omega-3 essential fatty acids. And why is this meaningful? Well, this is meaningful because people often lack omega-3 essential fatty acids. This is a big problem for a lot of people, and they may not realize it. But the only reason why that wild caught fish has the omega-3s in the first place is because they eat algae, right? A lot of raw vegans, they do this, they cover this need in an intelligent way, and they do this primarily by supplementing with spirulina or some form of plant-based algae supplement. And that plant-based algae will cover EPA and DHA, right, as well as vitamin D. That algae synthesizes vitamin D, EPA, DHA, etc., and that's a great supplement to actually cover those needs, and that's very important for hormonal function, brain chemistry, pituitary function, thyroid, etc., right? As well as liver function and everything else, reproductive function, all of that. But you don't necessarily have to supplement with the algae, right? You could add more hemp seeds, flax seeds, and chia seeds to your diet. Hemp seeds are one of the best sources for your omega-3 essential fatty acids. Right, so when you pursue a raw vegan diet, lean into your fats. Your diet doesn't have to be just a hugely fatty diet, right? I think 15% of your macros coming from fat, 20 or even 25% is good enough, right, on your raw vegan diet. And this is where you eat more. Like for me, for example, I eat a quarter cup of hemp seeds a day on average. In my first meal of the day, I'll put a quarter cup of hemp seeds and a quarter cup of flax seeds in my first meal. Right, so I'm getting a hefty amount of both, and that's definitely going to be significantly covering the omega-3 essential fatty acids that I need. And then what else covers my omega-6 essential fatty acids, which is also very important, is going to be pistachios, walnuts, almonds, cashews, avocado, these kinds of things, right? And then, of course, you know, and raw vegans know to really consume this stuff because we know leafy greens, big deal, right? Your leafy greens, the magic in having some of the leafy greens in your diet is because those leafy greens are very mineral rich. And the leafy greens are very rich in chlorophyll. Now, if you see here in this mug, okay, I am drinking liquid chlorophyll. Right. I eat greens, I eat dark leafy greens, but I also drink the liquid chlorophyll, right? And liquid chlorophyll is an amazing detoxing substance. This is the reason why, like, you know, if you have really bad breath, or if you have, when you go to the bathroom and you sit on the porcelain throne, right? And you set up to launch some logs, right? You get in there, you get a nice decreased angle in the hip, really lean into it, right? And you really push that log out, which it should come out effortlessly, but well, sometimes that's not the case for all of us, right? So you got to put a little bit more effort to grease the skids. The chlorophyll will help with that. Chlorophyll is very good with maintaining the consistency of your fecal matter. So one thing you'll notice is, you know, let's say you drink liquid chlorophyll for a week or so, and you're on this raw vegan diet, you will be able to generate these perfect logs. I'm not going to be too graphic, right? But you generate these perfect logs, and they come out smooth and seamlessly, right? And they got this beautiful dark green color, right? Minimal cleanup after, and they don't smell. So you can go in the bathroom and put in work, and you don't got to worry about blowing up the bathroom to the point where it's radioactive and nobody else can get in there. You know what I'm saying, right? So if you live with family, put the family onto the liquid chlorophyll, right? That's a big deal. Eat your leafy greens, drink your chlorophyll. If you don't want to drink liquid chlorophyll, juice. Juicing is another great one, right? So you go to the store and you just get all kinds of greens. Beets with the beet greens, mustard greens, cabbage, big head of, you know, baby spinach, right? All this type of stuff. Cabbage juice, by the way, is top tier. So you can get like a whole purple cabbage and juice that and drink that. It's bitter, it's not sweet, but I'm telling you right now, it's revolutionary when it comes to your health. Cabbage juice, that can heal your gut. That can kill cancer. That can fix your hormones, all types of stuff. That purple cabbage is phenomenal. Um, and then, you do the purple cabbage with like an apple or grapefruit or something like that to add a little bit of sweetness and whatnot to it, a little bit more vitamin C, beta carotene. That's a good combination right there, right? So if you got a juicer, and ideally the big thing now is a big masticating juicer that has a big, open thing at the top. It's not this little narrow chute, so you don't got to chop everything up. You can just plop it all in there, and it'll slowly kind of mash it up and whatnot, masticate it, and gives you a tremendous yield as far as your juice. Right? That's gonna be. I'm gonna get one of these new juicers like the Nama juicer, or a Coving's state of the art, one of these state of the art juicers. Right? It just give you all this juice. Right? So you want to consider juicing if you don't want to drink that liquid chlorophyll or eat your leafy greens, that kind of thing. But that chlorophyll and getting those micronutrients from those greens is super important. Your dark leafy greens are very rich in copper. Okay? I'm sure you've probably heard of a watermelon fast, or you've heard of like a grape fast, or, some type of cleanse, right? People go on a fruit cleanse and they'll just eat watermelon and grapes. That's it. Every day for like 21 days. And this watermelon and grapes can reverse all types of issues. What is it about watermelon and grapes? Why watermelon and grapes? Watermelon and grapes are extremely easy on the gut. If you've got diverticulitis, Crohn's, colitis, any kind of leaky gut issues or whatever the case is, if you've got cancer or whatever the case is, you don't really have much of an appetite. You may have some severe issues like that, liver issues, kidney issues, prostate issues, those types of things, where you're in a serious or severe situation. That's a good cleanse to do, right? And these are foods that are loaded with vitamin K, vitamin C, citrulline, and copper. It's got a bunch of other things, but those are some of the primary things. And those things really fortify your immune system. Copper is essential to your body's ability to create immune cells, right? So if your immune system, if you're like, let's say your white blood cells are low or something like that, and you don't need your white blood cells high, that's generally a bad sign, right? If your white blood cell count is off the charts, that means that your body's been battling infection and chronic illness, and you're in a state of heightened, oxidative stress and inflammation over a very long period of time, and it's hiking up your immune system. Which, if your immune system becomes overproductive, this is the substrate for autoimmune disease. So you don't want too much with the white blood cells, right? But copper is essential to having a healthy, strong immune system. Also very important to the formation of your red blood cells and hemoglobin, right? A lot of times people say, well, I've been anemic and I don't know how to reverse my anemia, right? I've been dealing with this for so long. And the assumption is, oh, I'm lacking iron. And it's like, well, you may not necessarily be lacking iron, but you're lacking copper and vitamin C. Anemia, if you're going to reverse like iron deficiency anemia, iron does not work on its own. It needs to be paired with copper, vitamin C, and B12. So, you got your grapes, watermelon, blueberries, raspberries, cherries, cranberries. These types of things give you the vitamin C, the copper, and the iron needed in order to have a healthy level of iron and hemoglobin, right? Hemoglobin is a blood protein that your body needs in order to absorb oxygen, right? This is a vital part of your blood, right? In order to absorb oxygen into your blood to power your cells. If you lack hemoglobin, this can cause a metabolic disorder that just slows everything down, right? This is very bad. You'll be cold all the time, tired, experiencing weakness, fatigue, muscle loss, rapid muscle loss, bone loss, arthritis, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, all types of stuff. It can get really nasty without that oxygen uptake and that healthy level of hemoglobin, right? So one thing that I put a lot of in diet plans are grapes, and I'm more partial to red grapes, right? I often talk about those red pigmented foods, the beets, the grapes, the strawberries, the raspberries, right? The blueberries, which those are not red, but you know, your reds, blues, and purples, right? They kind of fall into the same category of foods. These are a big deal, right? So if you have erectile dysfunction, if you have vaginal dryness, if you have high blood pressure, if you have excessively dry skin, if you're experiencing your scalp is real dry and your hair is falling out, right? That copper is very important. Now, along with that, right, we need an adequate level of zinc. And if you're a raw vegan and you're cutting out all of your fats because you're trying to keep your fats real low, you can develop a zinc deficiency because a lot of your zinc comes from your foods with your fats, your avocados, nuts and seeds, right? Things of this nature. And also mushrooms, right? We can't forget that. So this is where, you know, you want to load up on your hemp seeds, your flax seeds, your chia seeds, your pumpkin seed kernels, your sunflower seed kernels, walnuts, almonds, cashews, pistachios, right? Your macadamia nuts, that's a good one. And peanuts. Peanuts get a bad rap, but peanuts are absolutely amazing. I eat peanuts all the time. They're phenomenal, right? I get some of the best sleep I ever get in my entire life when I just eat tons of peanuts before bed. When I say tons of peanuts, it's more like around 2 cups or so of peanuts. So I can straight up eat like 1,400 calories of peanuts before bed, and I wake up the next day feeling amazing. My sleep is incredible. All right. And that is largely because I'm getting in, and peanuts aren't just high in zinc, but they're really high in copper. Is that copper again? Right? And of course, you know, there's statistical data also that demonstrates that consuming nuts like peanuts can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by like 19%. Right? This is the data currently about that. So yeah, all-cause mortality, right, is associated with eating your nuts. The general recommendation for the most part for the nuts is 28 to 32 grams per day. But of course, if you're a raw vegan, then the rules are going to be significantly different, and your intake may be a bit higher than that. I'm saying all of this because, you know, look, I got to keep it real with y'all. My folks in the tribe have been absolutely killing it as far as chronic illness reversal. On average, I got people reversing their issues in between 8 to 12 weeks. Right, so I had a lot of good calls today, or should I say all month, really. So far, all of the diabetics that have come on in the months of November and December have significantly improved their fasting blood sugar, and we're not cutting carbs. We're getting all the fruits in, all the carbs in, right? And just every week, new best scores. Right? Their blood sugar comes down much quicker after meals. They're waking up with their blood sugar much lower than it normally is. And their fasted blood sugar is significantly improved. Their blood pressure is improved. Just straight across the board. Phenomenal stuff, right? So nothing but good news. Folks is killing it. So this is why I'm very passionate about chronic illness reversal. I have a lot of success with this, with chronic illness reversal. It's kind of my thing, right? Because our population is struggling, because in our society, food poisoning is pretty much something that we experience throughout our entire lives, right? We can grow up in a household where every morning we're eating bacon, egg, and cheese. We're eating grits with butter and cheese in it, right? We're eating bacon and sausage fried in butter and oil and all types of stuff, and you do that with your family, you know, every morning, right? And so throughout your childhood, you're getting loaded up with cheese, grits, sausage, bacon, butter, and all of this type of stuff. um, salt and all this, right? So you get sabotage right out the gate. And chances are, if you ate like this, and you sat at the table with your family eating like this, chances are they're on medications right now for all types of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, gout from excessive uric acid, beta blockers, statins, and all types of stuff. Dealing with obesity, going to the gym, doing an hour of cardio every day, not losing no weight, just struggling, right? Fatty liver disease, kidney disease, pre-diabetic, full-blown diabetic, taking metformin and all types of stuff, right? This is a lot of our population is really struggling with this stuff because we're eating foods that we didn't realize how harmful they actually were, right? And a lot of us, what happens is we don't experience these things until we're like 30 years old. But these metabolic disorders are like 10 years in the making. This isn't a thing where it's just like, oh, you had a bad year and then boom. This is a thing that is developed within 5 to 10 years. So you can get away with a lot of stuff as a child because your gut health is not so bad, especially if you were breastfed as a child. But the moment you get into your later teens, you start eating out, you're responsible for feeding yourself. You go to your bodega, you get your bagel, bacon, egg, and cheese. You're eating, hot sauce and ketchup on your fries with burgers or whatever like that throughout your 16, 17, 18, 19, until you're 20, 21, whatever. You go to college. You're just eating whatever you can get a hold of with your tight budget, right? And you kind of throw your health to the side while you're studying for all types of exams, writing papers and whatnot to get your degree. And then you graduate, you get a job, you get some financial stability, you get your own place and whatnot, and you realize, God damn, I got some health issues here. And you realize this when you're 30, 33 years old, 35, etc., right? And this is what happens for a lot of people, okay? And this is the landscape that we're dealing with right now. So this is why I'm like, you know what? We got to talk about this ASAP. And we got to have a more nuanced conversation because there's this battle of like, oh, you don't need to, one side says you don't need to eat any carbs. And then another side says you don't need to eat any fat. And then, one side says, oh, everything is fine. The problem is lectins. Or one side says, oh, well, you just have to keep your blood sugar low. So everything you eat should have no insulin response, etc. There are no magic bullets. So what we have to do, people talk about macros and they talk about lectins and phytate. We have to talk about food choice. Name the foods you're talking about, right? And a lot of people, they have all of this scientific jargon, but the fact of the matter is name the food choices. Right? So that's why I talk about, hey, hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, avocado, grapes, blueberries. I put blueberries in most of the diet plans that I write, right? I do blueberry coconut yogurt with hemp seeds and like sliced banana on top with like 8 ounces of strawberries on top, right? That's a phenomenal breakfast. You could do that, like you can run that every morning. Phenomenal breakfast, right? You do your fruit bowl where you're eating 2 to 4 pounds of fruit within that fruit bowl, right? Having that midday or something like that, and that will keep you from hitting the wall. So when I put people on plans, I'm like, hey, are you hitting the wall? No. What is the wall? And y'all know what the wall is because a lot of people come to me chronically fatigued, right? Chronically fatigued, can't sleep, right? I say, hey, what's your sleep score? What would you rank your sleep on a scale of 1 to 5? Most people tell me 2.5 to 3. Right? High blood pressure, low energy, really fatigued all the time, no appetite in the morning, blood sugar really high first thing in the morning, and then they eat around 12 o'clock or so, and then they hit the wall at 2 o'clock. And they drag on until they hit 5 o'clock. And that's when they typically will have dinner, like around 5, 6 o'clock. Some people even 7 o'clock. Struggling to lose weight, only eating 2 meals a day, and hitting the wall every day and getting terrible sleep every night. This is a lot of people are dealing with this. Some of you probably identify with this. As a matter of fact, put a 1 in the chat if you identify with this. So getting into the nitty-gritty of it, right? What could cause you to have low energy? What are some of the causes? I have been asked a lot about hypothyroidism. This is the thing that affects a lot of people, hypothyroidism. And they think that something is wrong with their thyroid. Right, we got some ones popping up here. So, a lot of times when people have hypothyroid issues, they think something must be wrong with my thyroid. And my doctor wants to put me on levothyroxine, right? They want to put me on hormone medication, right? So I'll ask a list of questions. My first assumption is, for most people who tell me about this, their issue is not their thyroid, it's their liver. That tends to be my first guess. Your thyroid's fine, it's your liver. So I'll say, did you get blood test results? Yes. Okay. What is your TSH level, right? Thyroid stimulating hormone released from the pituitary gland. They say, oh, my TSH is real high. Okay. What's your T4? T4 is in range, but kind of on the high side. Or their T4 is also high. And I'm like, okay. What about T3? Yeah, my T3 is real low. Okay, got you. That's a liver issue. All right. Now, if you have an issue with your thyroid, then you'll see low T4. Right? So basically, pituitary gland releases TSH, provokes your thyroid to synthesize, release T4. T4 converts into T3, aided by the liver, and that's pretty much the chain of command there, right? But if you have a poor conversion of T4 to T3, then essentially what happens is you can experience massive weight gain, lethargia, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, these kinds of issues. But if it's a liver issue, chances are you probably have high triglycerides or high LDL cholesterol, right? You can also experience, especially this is very common in women, you can have estrogen disproportionately high to progesterone. And when you have these hormones that have a codependent relationship, when you raise one, you by default lower the other. So what happens is when your estrogen is excessively high, that lowers progesterone, which is really important for women to have good sleep quality, to be able to lose body fat, have healthy reproductive system, all this type of stuff, to be able to have a healthy uterus, ovaries, etc. Right? So when you have this excess estrogen, it's probably because your cortisol is constantly elevated, right? And then that gets perpetuated by poor sleep quality. So cortisol is just perpetually elevated. Your body then responds to this by raising estrogen, and the raise in estrogen is meant to be like a regulation of stress. So then your cortisol comes down as your estrogen comes up to meet it, because estrogen serves as a check on cortisol, right? But now you got this excessive estrogen, and so what happens in the liver, you get this overproduction of thyroxine binding globulin, right? TBG, and that is often what inhibits that T4 to T3 conversion, right? So you go, okay, well then how do I fix this issue? Well, you got to bring down your stress and improve your sleep quality. Now there's a few micronutrients that will do this for you. We've got tryptophan, which is an amino acid that serves as a precursor to serotonin. All right. So serotonin is the feel-good hormone. This is a hormone that allows you to experience things like pleasure, happiness, peace, etc. Right? Serotonin also is the precursor to melatonin. which your body then converts a portion of serotonin, well, your brain does this, where it converts serotonin into melatonin that releases at night when you're exposed to darkness. And that's what allows you to get into a deep sleep and get good quality sleep at night. So that serotonin production is really important. So tryptophan is very necessary for that. Magnesium and zinc. Now, magnesium and zinc, they particularly work together as a sleep aid. There is a supplement, and the supplement is called ZMA, zinc magnesium aspartate. And this is a supplement where they basically combine zinc and magnesium, and they chelate it with aspartate, and they use that to basically use that at night to get better quality sleep. It's essentially these minerals chelated with an amino acid, right? But you can get this from food. So, you know, when I was going back to when I was talking about with my peanuts are very rich in magnesium and zinc, as well as the tryptophan, right? Peanuts is a sleep aid, right? Walnuts, sleep aid. So you get this substantial amount of zinc and magnesium together, along with things like copper and tryptophan, and that brings down the oxidative stress and allows you to get some good quality sleep. So let's say at night for your last meal, right? You can do like my raw vegan taco salad, and this is essentially with, you know, you can do an avocado, a diced cucumber, diced onion, diced bell pepper. You can do pumpkin seed kernels, cashews, pistachios, hemp seeds. You do like 4 cups of leafy greens. You can do 2 cups of spring mix, 2 cups of baby spinach. For herbs, you can throw like, let's say, some basil leaves in there. You can put like a handful of fresh basil in there as well with that. You can throw let's say 1 to 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast on there, a teaspoon of taco seasoning, cumin, cayenne pepper, sea salt, and like some coconut aminos, right? And that could be your seasoning. So if you put like all of your ingredients in like a container, you put the seasonings on top, you put the lid on, and you can just shake it up to mix all the seasonings and whatnot in there, right? And that is a phenomenal salad. That's one of my go-tos. And that serves as a sleep aid, right? If you have digestive issues, this is a really good recipe to do. And then you can also combine that where after you finish eating that salad, you can do a half teaspoon of ginger powder. You put that in a mug, and then you fill the mug with 8 to 10 ounces of hot water, and you drink that down. Ginger also aids in sleep. Or you can do 1 gram of ginger and 1 gram of turmeric, and you can drink that down as a tea, and that also helps as a sleep aid. Alternative to that, before bed, you can do let's say 1 gram of ashwagandha. So you can get ashwagandha powder. You can take 1 gram of ashwagandha and put that in the mug and fill it with 8 to 10 ounces of hot water for tea and drink that down. Ashwagandha is a phenomenal sleep aid. That'll bring your cortisol down in real time. And in particular, with people with hypothyroid issues or Hashimoto's, their cortisol will skyrocket at night. And so it'll be hard to wind down and go to sleep at night because you're ramped up at night. So you'll be real tired all day and then get all of this energy at night. And then you identify yourself as a night owl. You're not a night owl. You've got hormonal issues. Right? So these are just ways to leverage foods. Everything I just said basically is a food-based option. Right? So food, herbs, spices, and the amino acids and minerals that are needed in order to correct these issues. But sleep is vital to reversing hormonal imbalances. You really can't improve your hormonal imbalance you really can't improve on your hormonal imbalances until you improve your sleep quality. All right. Let me catch up with y'all in the comments here 1 second. Hold on. Can you eat grapes if you're trying to lose weight? Of course. Absolutely. You say something. There's no evidence that shows that grapes are gonna make you fat. Before I continue, though, folks, hit the like button, right? Like the stream if you like the stream. I'm dropping straight fire tonight. Y'all, if y'all know somebody too who can benefit from this kind of information, definitely share it with folks. Share the stream, right? Share this video. Also, before I continue, I just want to let y'all know, there is a link in the description of this video where you can book a call with me. So if you need help with reversing any kind of chronic illnesses you may have, you can book a call with me, pick whatever day and time that works for you, and get yourself on the calendar. Right. Secondly, I'm running a 12-week mentorship where I teach a lot of stuff like this to my Tribe by Noir members. All right. So there's a link to that as well. So you get access to my high raw vegan nutrition guide. You get access to my fasting guide, training plans, self-development and mindset video series, as well as the Thursday live seminars that I do for my members in the Discord. All right. So definitely, so there's a link to that in the description there. And of course, I do personalized coaching as well, diet and training. What do you suggest for reducing brain swelling? It depends on what is causing the brain swelling, right? So I would need a bit more information, because the thing is that if you got brain swelling, is it from acute trauma? Is it from a more long-term thing? Is it from having really high blood pressure issues? Is it from a blood clot? Right? So I would need more information. Generally speaking, what reduces brain swelling? Is it chronic brain swelling? Is it acute? It depends, right? So it's kind of hard to really say because I need more information than that. Generally speaking, I would say that anything that reduces inflammation would reduce brain swelling, right? So I could say something like ashwagandha, right, could reduce brain swelling. You know, I could say turmeric or curcumin. So let's say if you were to do a gram of curcumin, right, that would reduce brain swelling. Black seed oil, right? Oh, brain cancer. Yeah, so now I'm gonna say black seed oil. I think a teaspoon a day of black seed oil with squeezed lime. Black seed oil, the data shows that black seed oil actually causes cancer to go into apoptosis. Basically, the cancer just implodes and diminishes. Black seed oil is the cancer killer. All right, it's a big deal, right? The primary active chemical compound in it is called thimequinone, right? So yeah, I would say black seed oil. I would definitely say that. Now, if you had more of a raw vegan diet to accommodate it, if you're juicing, so if you do the cabbage juice. So if you're juicing cabbage, grapefruit, beets with the beet greens, celery juice, things like that, these also kill cancer. Chlorophyll water, right? So if you're drinking chlorophyll water throughout the day, all of these things, because it's not one thing that's a magic bullet. The closest thing that would be a magic bullet would be that black seed oil. But the thing is that you need something that's going to reduce the oxidative stress, right? And that would decrease the swelling. But you need a diet that is going to improve your health holistically, and that has dietary implications, right? So you need like an anti-cancer, anti-oxidative stress, anti-inflammation diet in general, right? So that's where your watermelon, your grapes, those things like that come into play. All right. There also, you may be dealing with other peripheral issues, health issues that you were experiencing before you realized the cancer, right? So what are your kidneys dealing with? Well, how's your pancreas? How's your liver? How's your prostate? Right? So these are things you would want to consider. All right, so getting a little bit more nuance there. Also, what is your body fat percentage? what is your lifestyle like, right? Because you would need to diminish your lifestyle stress, right? So taking a holistic approach where, you're doing the supplementation with black seed oil, you're doing the juicing, you're doing, that raw vegan or high raw vegan diet, you got a solid bedtime, things like this. You're cutting out toxic, you're cutting out toxic relationships in your life, these kinds of things. You got to use every tool that you can to improve your health in these ways, right? So that you can not just beat back the cancer, but just get rid of it, period, forever. So you don't have to deal with this issue again. You don't want it coming back in any other way, shape, or form. So once you really start taking care of your health, once you take this aggressive approach to improving your health, you got to maintain that energy for the rest of your life, which means you can't go back to doing the stuff you used to do. You don't want to take those kinds of risks, right? So it's time to get militant, making more permanent changes, permanent solutions, right? So, all right. We got to get into, we talked about the thyroid issue and some of the approach to that, getting the sleep quality in. And I typically approach the thyroid issue by producing a plan that improves sleep quality. Also getting more thiamine in the diet. So when you add more of those nuts and seeds to your diet, when you add more avocado, you get more thiamine in your diet. When you add those tender leafy greens, right? The baby kale, the baby spinach, the spring mix, watercress, your pumpkin seed kernels, sunflower seed kernels. Sunflower seed kernels are amazing too because they're a very rich source of vitamin E, which is very important for your immune system, right? Great source of thiamine. Pumpkin seed kernels, phenomenal source of thiamine, right? Almonds, Brazil nuts, not just a tremendous source of thiamine, but also selenium, right? Some people need more selenium in their lives. Leafy greens, chromium, right? Some people need more chromium in their lives. That's another benefit to eating those leafy greens. In addition to that, now chromium absorption is not much. It's like you get like a 4, maybe 5% absorption rate of chromium from food sources. So if you were to go to supplement with chromium, which would be a good idea to do for about like 8 or 12 weeks or so, is to supplement with chromium picolinate and do around 500 micrograms of chromium picolinate in a fasted state every morning on wake up, right? And you can combine that with vitamin D because chances are if you're having liver issues, thyroid issues, chances are you're vitamin D deficient, right? So you can combine vitamin D3, chromium picolinate, as well as that teaspoon of black seed oil, and those things combined together would go a long way towards improving on that issue. And if you got to lose weight, which chances are if you're dealing with a thyroid issue, you got a substantial amount of body fat to lose, right? And chromium is a great way to improve insulin sensitivity, and it aids in weight loss. All right. Supplementing with chromium picolinate, right, on a daily basis for 8 to 12 weeks, 500 micrograms. The data shows that significantly aids in weight loss, right? Primarily by improving insulin sensitivity and having more stable blood sugar. When we talk about insulin sensitivity and we talk about, like, for example, type 2 diabetes, it's not just improving your fasted blood sugar. It's not just about keeping your blood sugar from skyrocketing, but it's also about improving your metabolism so that your blood sugar comes down quicker, right? So you may eat several bananas. You may eat like 4 bananas and your blood sugar may shoot up into the 200s and you're like, oh, my blood sugar went up real high. But how long did it take to come down? If your blood sugar comes down pretty quickly shortly after, and you don't experience a crash, you don't experience an energy crash, you feel good, you're breathing good, you got good mental alertness, you don't hit the wall during the day, and your blood sugar comes down shortly after you eat them bananas, right? They come down within that hour window or so, right? That's a good sign, right? That's a sign of good enough insulin sensitivity to be able to handle that load of bananas. The problem is when your blood sugar doesn't come down and you actually need to take something to get your blood sugar down. That's the problem, right? So there's a bit of nuance there. Yeah, we want to improve our fasted blood sugar. We also want to improve, how high our blood sugar is when we wake up in the morning. Your blood sugar might be a little high when you wake up in the morning, but it shouldn't be like 180, 200 or something crazy like that, right? Because that means that things have been kind of rough with you and your sleep quality, and your cortisol is really high. And cortisol will break down fat to create an extra degree of blood sugar, glucose, to really get you up in the morning and stimulate you to wake up, right? It's an agitator, essentially. Cortisol is an agitator, right? So, having a better blood sugar in the morning, where maybe your blood sugar is 95 in the morning or 100 or something like that, maybe 110 or whatever the case is, but it shouldn't be crazy, right? But a blood sugar like around in between 90 and 80 or something like that, now we're talking, right? So I've gotten some folks where their fasted blood sugar was like 180, and then 2 weeks later it was down in the 140s, 130s, and then the week after that, then it was down to like 120, 110, or somewhere around there. It happens pretty quickly, right? You can see some really quick improvements in your blood sugar if you're making the right dietary choices, right? So foods that are rich sources of not just thiamine, but also folate, your B vitamins, essentially all of your B vitamins, whether it be your niacin, your pyridoxine, etc. Basically your B1 through 9, your B12. All of these are really important because they power your nervous system. And the reason why you want to power your nervous system is because when you adequately nurture and nourish your nervous system, this makes your body more responsive, right? So you don't get this delayed, so like for example, if you don't adequately nourish your nervous system, your blood sugar can skyrocket and not come down. Because if your nervous system is not responsive, that means oxygen uptake is not responsive. That means it's latent, right? ATP conversion, right? Your cells converting glucose into ATP and using that for energy, that gets slowed down. There's a hitch in that system if your nervous system is delayed. That's what causes people to hit the wall. That wall where you're like, oh, I got a crash. I got an energy crash. That's a hitch in your nervous system. It's a lack of responsiveness, right? So that's why we need the B vitamins. If you notice, if you have like a Red Bull, a Monster energy drink, any of these, you'll see they're loaded with B vitamins. We're talking like freaking 600% of your B12, 700% of your niacin. Crazy numbers. They really loaded up with the B vitamins. Because the B vitamins, that is like electricity to your nervous system, right? So we get that responsiveness, right? And that responsiveness translates into better blood sugar. I'm not telling you to go drink Monster energy drinks and whatnot, though, right? Because you don't want all the caffeine and whatnot that comes along with that. You don't want that. Developing a habit of just high levels of caffeine consumption throughout the day, that becomes a neurotoxin, right? So we don't want that. If we're going to be getting our B vitamins, we primarily want to do that through food sources. We don't want to just get hit with large amounts of unmitigated straight up B vitamins with a ton of like caffeine, right? We don't want that. All right. And then we want our B vitamins paired with minerals like magnesium, like manganese, like potassium, right? Like iron, like calcium, because these, not only are they the building blocks of our DNA, not only are they alkalizing substances to balance our pH level, but they also are conductors of electrical energy, right? And the vitamins don't really have much of an effect to any long-lasting degree without the minerals as the raw materials to conduct that energy, right? That's why we need those alkalizing minerals. And that's primarily going to be food-based. All right. So covering diabetes a little bit, covering the thyroid issues. And then we got to talk about liver, right? Our liver. Because the liver is at the center of everything in our metabolism. Well, you say when we talk about conductivity, gold is glorified today as jewelry in our electronics. Yeah, because gold is an amazing conductor. Is gold in fruits? Maybe. I don't know. I never thought about gold being in fruits. I don't know how gold would be food based. I would have to look into that. But yeah, gold is a phenomenal conductor, right? But typically, you know, we have trace minerals, we got our macro minerals, we got different kinds of minerals, right? In our foods. So, you know, when we talk about the liver, now when people have liver disease, if people have a fatty liver, chances are you have a diet that is deficient in magnesium. Chances are you're eating a dehydrating diet, right? So if your triglycerides are really high, that means that you've got a lot of fat stored in your liver. Your cortisol level's super high, right? There's a hitch in your metabolism. So what happens is your triglycerides are really high because you got a lot of fat stored in your liver. And your liver is kicking out triglycerides, breaking down the stored fat, kicking out triglycerides to try to give you energy. But the problem is your cells are not receiving the resources needed to facilitate adequate energy levels because there's a poor conversion of that energy into ATP. There's a poor conversion of those resources into ATP, which is needed to power your cells and engage in the metabolic process. So you get flooded with triglycerides in your blood and it's not being used for energy in the way that it should. There's a hitch in the process, right? So that would explain the whole the high triglycerides thing. If your LDL is really elevated, LDL is a marker of inflammation. Your body kicks out and synthesizes LDL, okay, as a response to cellular damage. Okay, so if you got really high LDL, that is an inflammatory response. You can actually see an increase in your LDL by tearing a joint. You can tear a ligament or a tendon or something like that, and you can experience excess LDL. Arthritis, chances are if you're dealing with arthritis, you also have excess LDL. Your LDL is excessively high, right? And as a matter of fact, as you age, right, when your physiological age increases, your LDL also increases. It's an inflammatory response, right? And to a degree, aging, in order for the aging process to happen, there has to be oxidative stress. There has to be more cellular deterioration than cellular generation, right? So it's not a one-to-one anymore. Now you're losing cells quicker than you're gaining new ones. This is literally how aging works. And that's inflammatory. And your body responds by increasing cholesterol production, right? So elderly people, 70, 80, 90, even 60 years old, their cholesterol will be excessive. Because that's one of the mechanisms that your body counteracts that oxidative stress, because cholesterol is needed in order to form the cell membranes of new cells. So when your body is creating new cells, well, in order for your body to create new cells, it's got to have that cell membrane, that waxy exterior, right, that is made from that cholesterol, those lipoproteins, right? So that's how that works, right? there's all of this, and cholesterol is a bit of a complicated thing because cholesterol is not bad. It's needed, it's necessary, but it's a matter of degree, right? So you'll see some people out here, they're saying, oh, hi, my cholesterol, my LDL is, 300 and change, 500 and change. My LDL cholesterol is super high, and it's not a problem at all. The high LDL being a predictor of heart disease is not even a real thing. That's bunk science. Like, okay. Given what I just told you, right? Quite simply put, if your cholesterol is, your LDL in particular, is extraordinarily high, it's not really a good thing. Because the thing is that you only need your cholesterol to be high enough. More is not always better. Right? If my eyes increase in size by 15%, that's not good. Right? I don't see better because my eyes are larger, right? That's not how that works. If my brain increases, that's not good because my brain growing in size is going to press up against my skull and it's going to be extraordinarily painful, but it's not going to make me smarter. Right? So people engage in these kind of crude talking points. You don't need your cholesterol to be really low. You don't need it to be really high. You just need it to be sufficient. You just need enough. Right? So when you got people who are eating like a diet of, butter, milk, and beef, yeah, that's inflammatory. Right? LDL is an inflammatory marker. Right? And, some people can do it. You can do it for 8 weeks, 12 weeks. You can do it for 3 months. You can do it for 6 months. But a year in, you start having problems. Right? Because the fact of the matter is that, yeah, you can get away with bad habits for quite a while. Right? You have some people who are like 100 years old and smoking cigarettes, and seemingly they're fine. It's not an endorsement of cigarette smoking. Right? We got to be a little bit more nuanced about how we engage in the discourse here. A lot of raw vegans, interestingly enough, their cholesterol is too low. Right? If your cholesterol is too low, where your let's say HDL is like below 50 or something like that, too low. And chances are it's probably because you're not getting enough of the healthy fats that you should, right? So you need to have more avocado in your diet. You need to have, let's say, more coconut yogurt in your diet, right? Or coconut milk. You need to have more nuts and seeds in your diet, right? This kind of thing. Because your body needs those fats. And your body needs those fats for hormone synthesis like testosterone. So to have an adequate level of testosterone, you need those fats. Hair. If your scalp is excessively dry, you need more fats in your diet. If you're experiencing a whole bunch of hair shedding, you need more fats in your diet. Right? And it's not just the fats, but also the thiamine, the zinc, the selenium, these kinds of things, right? The omega-3 as well as the omega-6. You need those to have healthy hair, skin, nails, right? So that you're not all wrinkly, dry, and thin and sparse. Because that will age you. Right? So we got to be more balanced, when it comes to these things. Now, all of this relates to fatty liver is because your liver needs not just more fat to reverse fatty liver disease, but you need the right type of fats. Excessive storage of fat in your liver is not a result of just eating too much fat. That's not really what the issue is. It's storing more fat than your body is capable of using because there's a mineral deficiency. That mineral deficiency typically is going to be magnesium. So when you increase the amount of fat in your diet, it should come in fat sources that have a good amount of magnesium. Right? So you want to get your fats from foods that are high in the 5 alkalizing minerals, right? Your iron, your calcium, your magnesium, your manganese, and your potassium. Right? I talk about these, if you've watched some of my streams before, I talk about these 5 alkalizing minerals. Your fat sources should have a substantial amount of these minerals, right? It may not have a substantial amount of all 5, but it will of, let's say, 3 of them, right? Usually 4, right? Somewhere along those lines. You don't need a lot of calcium in your diet, right? Because that can actually be problematic if you have a lot of calcium in your diet. This would lead into a thing that people often say to me where they say, well, what about spinach and, you know, what is that called? It's the thing, I keep forgetting the word. Help me out here, folks, in the chat. What is that called that people, they fearmonger about spinach? And it's something about it develops stones or something like that in the spinach and the calcium. What's that thing called? I keep forgetting the name. Oxalates, right? And people have this thing, oh, you can be careful of the leafy greens because of oxalates. And it's like, well, the oxalates is not really, much of a concern. Right? Now, it's a theory, but there's not really any data to support it, right? Because if you're eating, you know, if you're eating a diet that's balanced, right? You're not just eating, you know, 30 pounds of spinach a day. You're not drinking green smoothies 6 times a day. You wouldn't really necessarily have to worry about something like that, right? You're not having, you know, 2 pounds of leafy greens with every single meal. You know, this kind of thing, right? You're not trying to eat like a farm animal, or you're just sucking back just pounds of kale and spinach all day, right? So everything is a matter of proportion. Judy, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Yes, ma'am. So the oxalate thing, I mean, you know, people will come to these conclusions because of data they've seen in a test tube, but it doesn't work like this in the human body. When people develop stones, let's say kidney stones or gallstones or something like that, it's usually from an acidic environment where they lack magnesium and they have an excessive degree of calcium in their diet, right? So people say, if you're going to demonize oxalates, well, then you also have to demonize calcium, right? Because the oxalates don't work in a vacuum to create stones. In order to form stones, you need the calcium. But the magnesium serves as a check on calcium absorption. Magnesium is needed in order to facilitate calcium absorption, known as osteoblast. And that calcium then gets absorbed into your bone tissue and your muscle tissue. But if you have a lack of magnesium, that's when you're very susceptible to stone formation. I've never had anybody where they're perfectly healthy and they keep getting stones because they eat spinach. It's not a thing. It doesn't happen. Of all the people I've had come to me with joint issues, arthritis or joint pain, gout, whatever the case is, it's not because they eat vegetables, it's because they don't eat vegetables. Right? One thing these people all have in common is every time they cook a meal, they're cooking with oil. And they have a very fatty diet where their fat source is predominantly saturated fat. And those saturated fat sources don't contain magnesium. So they're consuming a diet that is deficient in magnesium, deficient in potassium, and then they're adding sodium in order to make their food taste good, and then they're adding sodium to foods that they're cooking in oil. So there's saturated fat in the food, and then there's saturated fat in the oil, and then they're adding sodium, and this is making this dehydrating, salty, fatty meal loaded in protein, and that's inflammatory because it's imbalanced. So we got to be a bit more nuanced about this. I've had people, they're like, you know, I have had high blood pressure and I just can't seem to get my blood pressure down. I don't know what the deal is. I've been dealing with this for like 12 years. And I'm like, describe your diet to me. And then I'm like, do you cook with oil? Yeah. Do you always cook with oil? Yeah, for the most part. When you cook, what are the foods you're typically cooking? Well, you know, I typically use like olive oil. I'll make baked chicken, turkey, whatever. I try to eat healthy. I eat fish, baked fish, all this type of stuff. Oh, okay. And so I'm like, so your diet is high in protein and fat, and you're cooking with a lot of oil. Okay. How much fruit do you eat? I don't really eat much fruit. I may eat like maybe a couple servings of fruit a week. I don't really eat much fruit. Okay. What about leafy greens? Do you eat leafy greens? Yeah, I eat greens. Okay. Do you eat them raw? No, I cook them. How much do you cook them? I mean, I cook them with the rest of my food. I mean, I cook my greens pretty good. Oh, you cook the crap out of them, basically, right? Oily, overcooked greens with the fatty, salty food. Oh, well, I cut sodium out of my diet. Oh, okay. You cut the sodium out of your diet. All right. Well, that's okay. One thing I noticed about your diet is there's not really any potassium, because if you eat your leafy greens, well, that would have the potassium in it, but if you overcook the greens, you cook all the potassium and the magnesium out of the greens. If you're not eating any of your fruits, you're not really getting much potassium out of your fruits. So where are you getting your potassium from? Potassium is a form of currency. The more saturated fat you eat, that's going to cost you something. Potassium. Potassium regulates the amount of water in your blood. But if you have enough fat in your diet, essentially your blood gets over flooded with lipids from the saturated fat, oxidized fat because you're cooking the oil. If you weren't cooking the oil, it wouldn't be so bad. But when you're cooking the oil, you're oxidizing it and then consuming it. So your body is like, you are trying to kill me. Here's a very important rule you should know about the human body. The human body wants to remove things that are oxidized. If you are consuming things that are oxidized, you are doing the opposite of what your body wants to do. This would be like the equivalent of you live in the house with folks, and at night you take the garbage out to the curb, and then somebody else who lives in the house, they go out to the curb and they take the garbage and bring it back in the house. And then you see the garbage that you just took out and you see it sitting in the house again. And you're like, how's the garbage back in the house? So then you take the garbage back out again, and then somebody else comes and they take the garbage back in again. Imagine how you would feel if you kept seeing that garbage brought back in the house every damn time. You'd be like, I know I'm not losing my damn mind. Didn't I just take this garbage out twice and it's back in here again? You'd be screaming at everybody in the house. Who's bringing the damn garbage back in the house? That's what your body feels like. I keep trying to remove these oxidated things, get rid of these metabolites, and you just keep dumping them back in the gut. And then you get all of these saturated fats and proteins and everything, and then you're burning through all this potassium. Magnesium absorption is being inhibited because of the excessive amount of saturated fat that blocks magnesium absorption in the intestines, which further drives you into a magnesium deficiency. You've been adding salt to your diet for years with a magnesium deficient diet, with a potassium deficient diet. So now your sodium is excessively high in proportion to potassium, which is leading to dehydration, compounded with the saturated fat and the cooking of everything you eat. When you don't eat it, you don't eat much raw foods at all, and everything is cooked and burnt up and oily and whatnot. This causes vascular constriction, and vascular constriction is the equivalent of you yelling at your family members, pissed off because they keep bringing the garbage back in the house. That's what that is. So I put people on a plan. I'm like, all right, so we're cutting out the oils. We're actually going to add salt to any foods that you eat. Like if we're eating we'll add like a gram or two of salt to your diet on a daily basis. Oh, but isn't that going to raise my blood pressure? No, because this is a diet rich in potassium. When you eat 2.5 pounds of grapes, you're going to get tons of copper, vitamin K2, potassium, water, vitamin C, all of that, right? Antioxidants, all types of stuff. And that's going to cause vasodilation. We're going to put watermelon in your diet. So that's good. You're going to get citrulline from your diet. Citrulline, which acts as a vasodilator, right? Because it's the precursor to arginine. Arginine is then used by your body to make nitric oxide, which opens up your blood vessels. That's also loaded with copper. Copper being the substrate for hemoglobin, that blood protein that I mentioned earlier. More blood oxygen absorption leads to further vasodilation, increased energy production, increased ATP conversion from your glucose, higher insulin sensitivity. More insulin sensitivity drives down blood pressure, counteracts the inflammation of being congested by all of this excess lipids and glucose floating around in your bloodstream from being inflamed because of all the oils and the fats and the excess protein being acidic. High levels of protein are acidic. Saturated fat is acidic, right? An acidic diet will cause you to have arthritis. It'll cause you to have a fatty liver. It'll cause you to have kidney damage, high blood pressure. That high blood pressure squeezes the portal vein to the kidney, inflaming the kidneys. This is how all this works. So when you put this watermelon, the grapes, the grapefruit, the tangerines, the kiwis in the diet, you put your almonds, walnuts, pistachios, hemp seeds, chia seeds, blueberries, leafy greens, you know, if you're adding in things like sweet potato and all of this type of stuff, etc., into your diet, this helps to counteract all of that. You're getting a more hydrating diet, and the more hydrated you are, the less susceptible to high blood pressure you become. This is how I've been able to pretty much help every single person who's come to me with high blood pressure. We've been able to get every single person to have healthy blood pressure. And we're able to do it real quick. Don't take long either. And you start seeing an improvement in your blood pressure within a week. And then over a 4 to 8 week or 12-week period, those changes become permanent. And we dig you out of that magnesium deficiency that over 40% of the population is dealing with. Right? Cali Girl is in here too. We fixed your blood pressure. Oh, MS. That's a good one. Talking about MS, right? Multiple sclerosis. Absolutely. That's a stress disease. If you got MS, you've been dealing with tremendous amount of stress. You need more B vitamins in your diet. You need a more hydrating diet. You need a diet that has an abundance of magnesium in it. You need a diet with more zinc. You need more omega-3s in your diet, right? You need that chlorophyll in your diet. I need to work with more people with MS too, because I've had some good success with MS, but it's not that common. At least not that in my experience. But yes, MS is, yeah, this type of eating would definitely help with MS. All right. Kidney disease, right? Should we touch on kidney disease? I think I'll end on kidney disease. Unless somebody wants me to touch on anything else. Yeah, if you want help reversing your MS, hit the link in my bio. Let's do it. Book a call with me. Let's get set up so we can start working on this thing. How do you combat knee pain? Oh, well, it depends on what the source of the knee pain is. Is it acute knee pain as a result of a muscular imbalance, trauma to the actual knee joint? If it's one knee, chances are it's because of a muscular imbalance or a direct injury to the joint. Usually, though, the people who are most susceptible to a knee injury are people with unstable hips or limited ankle mobility. I'm very familiar in that because I have a background in physical therapy and corrective exercise. Right? So there's that. So chances are the knee that is injured is the hip that is the most unstable and the most limited amount of ankle mobility. Right? So that would be the deal with that. Do you have all this information consolidated into one place for easy reference? Yeah, that would be for members. I have my, member-only streams recorded. So there's a growing playlist of all this information, as well as my high raw vegan nutrition guide. And I add modules to it for things like this. So if people want me to explain more about, go over kidney disease, I'll add a module for that. If people want me to go over MS, I'll add a module for that. So it is a growing living document that I have up for members. right? So every Thursday I live stream with my folks who are members as well. So yeah, and then I also do personalized coaching, right? So yeah. Coach is awesome. You won't regret it. Sign up. True. Big shout out to you, Juju. Juju. I got a GG and a Juju. I got two Jujus in the tribe now. I either got two Jujus or two JJs in the tribe now. I think it's two Jujus. Here, I see. All right, so let's get into kidney disease, right? So with your kidneys. If you wanted to reverse kidney disease, one of the most important things you can do is get more hydrated. You should have a hydrating diet. That grape and watermelon fast that I was talking about earlier, that right there has all kinds of receipts for benefiting people with kidney disease. The data that we currently have on kidney disease right now currently shows that one of the best things that you can do for dealing with kidney disease is reduce your protein consumption by 10%. All the people that generally have kidney disease have a history of having a high protein diet. High protein, high saturated fat with a magnesium deficiency, right? So having a diet where, you know, you're getting in 1 gram of protein per kilogram of lean mass generally is a good recommendation if you got kidney disease. The more raw your diet is, the better your chances will be. And kidney disease basically is a metabolic issue, right? So you've got creatine. Creatine is synthesized inside the body from the amino acids that you get from your food. And that creatine is used to produce muscular contractions and, you know, is pretty essential for ATP conversion in general, right? People even supplement with creatine, but your body generally produces like 1 gram of creatine per day. When creatine is then used through those contractions, right, it is expended. The byproduct of that creatine is creatinine, which is then recycled through your kidneys. If your creatinine levels are high, that's usually a result of having excess protein consumption in the diet. What happens is people tend to have excess methionine and cysteine in their diet, right? And this is going to be particularly coming from animal products, beef, chicken, turkey, things like this, right? Now, if you have kidney disease, chances are this started in the liver first, right? A lot of uric acid production, a lot of acid. And if you have a shortage of vitamin C in your diet and a shortage of potassium, your body has to expend an incredible amount of glutathione. Glutathione is an antioxidant, your body's natural antioxidant that it produces. So when you're chronically inflamed, one of the ways that your body counteracts that inflammation or oxidative stress is glutathione. However, you can burn through too much of your glutathione, and this is where your problems really set in with your liver disease, kidney disease, things like that. And your kidneys are like the last line of defense, is because when there are toxins being loaded up and accumulated in your body, free radicals, metabolites, etc., your body has to either flush that out or it has to recycle it back into something positive and alkalizing, right? And if your kidneys get, overwhelmed and inflamed because they're getting damaged by these toxins over time, what happens is you develop kidney disease, right? And a lot of the kidney issues are a result of just too much acid production, too much protein, and protein is very acidic, right? Saturated fat, it's also very acidic. And if you don't have those 5 alkalizing minerals prominent in your diet, there's no assistance, there's no aid to your kidneys. So your kidneys just have to work super hard, And it's just not feasible to sustain that. Right? And so this is where raw diet comes in, because essentially a raw diet by default is an alkalizing diet. Right? So when I say a hydrating diet, yeah, having, more of those grapes, blueberries, cranberries, raspberries. By the way, the berries are really, really beneficial for your kidneys. Blood sugar control, really important for your kidneys. So when you're having your kidneys, your cranberries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries in your diet, your grapes in your diet, watermelon, things like that, this improves blood sugar control, insulin sensitivity, thus reduces the oxidative stress in the kidneys, causes vascular dilation, more blood flow to the kidneys, is restorative. To restore any organ in the body, you have to increase oxygenation. And the way to do that is to increase blood flow to those areas. Right? When you increase blood flow, that blood flows to the organs with extra oxygen. Extra blood flow means extra oxygen, which is restorative to those organs. The metabolic process requires a substantial amount of oxygen in order to heal those organs, right? So oxygen combined with glucose, as well as the vitamins, amino acids, and minerals combined together is what causes the healing. To heal anything in the body requires more blood flow, right? So those fruits that I mentioned are some of the things that does that. All right. Simple enough. We're running late here, right? We definitely put the time in tonight. We covered a lot tonight. Definitely, whoever hasn't hit the like button yet on the stream tonight, definitely hit the like button. Like the stream if you like the stream. All right. Herniated disc, sciatica. Oh, so we getting into the exercise stuff, right? Herniated disc and sciatica. I would probably ask you, when you stand in a stationary position, so like for example, if you were to stand up and jog in place and then stop, are your toes pointed straight forward? Are they pointed inward, or are they flared outward? That's one question. Another question would be, which leg do you feel like you put the most of your weight on? Do you put more of your body weight on your left leg or your right leg? Which leg feels more stable? Okay. Typically the weaker side is the side that has the most complications. Also, a good thing is, if you get into a half kneeling position and you flex your hip that is extended, meaning the knee that's on the floor in the half kneeling position, if you squeeze that glute to drive that hip forward, does that feel challenging? Does it feel tight? And do you feel a pulling of the quadricep on that knee? Also, can you reach back, grab that heel, and pull that heel up? Meaning, further flexing the knee, do you feel an excessive strain and tightness on the quadricep? This is how you would be able to determine what your issues are, because the sciatic pain and all of this type of stuff, this is like related to tightness in the hips. So tightness in the hip flexors, weakness in the glutes, these types of things. And then weakness in the piriformis, as well as your psoas. So you would have to stretch your quadriceps, your hip flexors, your psoas, and your piriformis. All right. So basically, your whole hip area has got to be stretched out. Stretching out your adductors. One simple stretch that would really help you is if you sit in a chair, for example, and you take your left ankle and you cross it over your right thigh, and then you lean forward. That would stretch your piriformis, and you can do that on both sides. Getting into that half kneeling position, actively squeezing the glute to push the hip forward right? That's one way to stretch, and then you can lean into it, further stretching the hip. You can also stretch your hamstrings and your adductors by, if you're in that half kneeling position, you take both of your palms and place them down in the floor in front of you and lean into the stretch, right? Then once both palms are down on the floor, and I know you can't see me do this, I don't know if you really follow along with me. On another stream, I'm gonna have to go through mobility exercises, which I have those, right? I put mobility exercises in my training plans. But you put your palms on the floor in front of you, and then the leg with the knee that was on the floor, what you're gonna do is slide that leg back out behind you. Try to straighten out that leg as much as possible to further stretch that hip flexor. And as you do that, you're gonna feel even more of a stretch in the hips. The lead leg, meaning the bent leg that's in front of you. So like if your left leg is the lead leg, you would take your left palm and you would basically take it this way, rotate it the torso, and then reach to the ceiling. Right? And that would further stretch out that piriformis. You can essentially do something like that on both sides and just move through that range of motion repeatedly, and you'll gradually feel it start to open up. There's a lot of mobility exercises like that, but if you have these kinds of issues with your spine and, you know, sciatic pain and whatnot, these mobility exercises are important. And if you're doing a lot of sitting during the day, that is going to crush your mobility. When you're sitting throughout the day, you're essentially just sitting in a compressed state where you're compressing your lumbar spine, and you're compressing all of the nerves in your sacrum, your S1, S2. And then that is going to compress that sciatic nerve, and that's when you'll feel the discomfort and the numbness of that nerve going straight down the hamstring, and you may even feel a numbness or a coldness in that foot. And then there's exercises, because you got to get blood flow to the area. Once you strengthen your glutes, you get more blood flow to the glutes, you open up the hips, that allows more blood flow, which that will take the pressure off and start to reverse that sciatic pain. And this would also be good for strengthening the muscles around that herniated disc. You can reverse a herniated disc, right? It is possible. It takes a while. It could take a really long time. But when you realign your spine, you strengthen the core muscles and whatnot, your core muscles are like a corset. So if you tighten them up enough, you strengthen them enough, and you pull your spine into alignment, that can also pull that disc into alignment. Because a herniated disc is essentially where the disc itself has been compressed and it kind of slips out, and it has like a little bit of like a bulge, right? So basically what you would need to do is open up the compressed part so that it can start to slide back into place. And that's essentially how that works. You got these discs that are like fluid sacs, and they sit in between your vertebrae to provide cushion. All right, I covered a lot tonight. I went into all types of stuff. So we brushing up on my bedtime here. It's almost 10 o'clock on my end. So folks, thanks for tuning in. Much appreciated. All right. You need help with, we're going to talk about it. D, we got to get on a call and talk more about the mobility stuff that we can do. So definitely get yourself on the schedule. Let's talk about it. So definitely, folks, if you want to book a call with me, hit the link in the description box below. You can book a call with me. You can join the 12-week mentorship. All right. A lot of important information there. You get direct access to me as well as my Discord. You can give and receive support, recipes, all types of stuff, right? So the Discord is popping, and then I do a live stream just like this one on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, live seminar. So I think that covers it. And then if you want a personalized plan, you can jump on that as well, right? Links in the description. Folks, I'm turning in for the night, and I will catch y'all on the next Monday Night Live.